evacuated to Walter Reed, and I escorted him on the medevac from Andrews Air Force Base to Walter Reed. He looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, whether you realize it or not, 1 year from now you'll be running in the Army 10-miler. Tim looked at me a few weeks later, and he said, I can let it end my life, or I can let it change my life. His final comment to me before he went into surgery was, God promised me eternal life. He didn't promise me legs for all of eternity. This is somebody that embodies I will never accept defeat. PFC Cornford was 17 years old when my brigade deployed. He was unable to deploy with me. 17 years old, he had pimples and pockmarks. When he turned 18, we'd been in country for about 5 months. PFC Cornford reported to his platoon leader, 2nd Lieutenant Neal, just prior to us conducting an operation into the Djibouti Peninsula, an area where no U.S. forces had been, an area that Al-Qaeda thought they controlled. We were going to prove them wrong. We conducted our air assault into the Djibouti Peninsula, and when we arrived, Lieutenant Neal, just prior to liftoff, looked at Cornford and said, I've done lots of these missions. You stay right by me. Do not leave my side. We did the air assault. The Djibouti Peninsula is a very densely populated area with palm groves, so you can't even see the individual 5 feet from you. As we landed at the LZ, we came under almost immediate fire. Lieutenant Neal and Cornford got separated from the rest of the platoon. They engaged the enemy at very close range. Eventually, Lieutenant Neal was hit with a small arms round that severed his femoral artery. PFC Cornford stayed right by his side. He engaged the enemy with all 7 of his magazines and 3 of Lieutenant Neal's. 18 years old. He engaged the enemy with 6 hand grenades and 3 of his own. The whole time is encouraging his platoon leader to hang on. At one point, literally putting his hand into Lieutenant Cornford's leg, or Lieutenant Neal's leg, and holding his femoral artery, trying to keep him alive. The platoon eventually arrived to his position, and then during medevac, Lieutenant Neal died of his wounds. Cornford refused to be evacuated from the battlefield for his own wounds until Lieutenant Neal was evacuated. He refused to leave his side. For that, he was awarded the Silver Star, 18 years old. These are the individuals that are absolutely amazing. These are the ones that come home and reintegrate into society. And if you wonder if they have challenges when they do, they do. If you wonder if their ability to achieve their capacity for greatness and thrive in civil society is affected by it, they need encouragement. Each one is unique. Each one has a capability. That's why I like Vets for Vets. We trust you. We trust you. And we trust each other even more. And we can talk about it, and we can discuss our challenges. We can discuss and we can thrive. September 24th, 2007, I was at a fellowship festival, the largest gathering of Iraqis since the invasion. 500 Iraqis in one place. They all came to the neighborhood of Shifta in Bakuba. It was Sunnis and Shia. They were praying together because it was Ramadan. It was tribal leaders, government officials, security leaders. The only one there that wasn't Iraqi was me and my security detachment. In my security detachment was Staff Sergeant Donnie Dixon. Donnie had been with me for 3 years. I handpicked him to be my personal security officer. An amazing individual, very quiet, loved the Dolphins and anything from Miami, which made him an easy target for heckling and making fun of. Eventually, as we finished the night, the sun went down and the Iraqis broke fast. What they didn't recognize is that the Jundis, or the soldiers that were providing security, broke fast also. Security broke down. Before my personal security detachment could reestablish that perimeter, a suicide bomber snuck in. As we finished eating, we broke for chai. The Iraqis went into the mosque. I stayed outside just on the steps because I had my firearm on my side. We saw a commotion over on the side as the suicide bomber tried to get either close to me or close to the governor. The governor's personal security detachment surrounded this suicide bomber. He detonated. He killed 24 and wounded 36, including 3 coalition force members. The first one to me to lift me up from under the bodies and the body parts was the Staff Sergeant grabbed me by the back of the neck, dazed and confused and covered with parts. He tried to pull me out, saying, "Sir, we got to get out of here." I think because of the being dazed, and I think partly because of the flamboyancy of a cavalry officer, I said, "We're the United States Army. We don't fight for the same train twice." And we established a perimeter, and we triaged the casualties, and eventually my interpreter from his wounds was suffering that we had to evacuate. We evacuated back to the aid station. The whole time Dixon was watching me. The whole time he was watching out for me, allowing me to do my job. When we got to the aid station, I realized that Donnie Dixon had been wounded. He had shrapnel to his face and to his shoulder. He was treated at the aid station and refused to go to the combat support hospital. A few days later, I had a company in Muktadia, a town of about 70,000. The leadership had completely broken down. So I had to go figure out what was going on. 5 days later, I put the word out that we'd leave at 10 o'clock and Staff Sergeant Dixon would remain on Bob Warhorse, recovering from his wounds. I went out to my vehicle at 10, climbed in, and just before I climbed in, I saw Dixon sitting in the passenger seat on the Humvee behind mine. I walked up to him and I said, "I put the word out you weren't supposed to go," and he looked at me and said, "Sir, you're leaving the wire, I'm leaving the wire." We went up to Muktadia, linked up with the company commander and the first platoon leader. We spent about 45 minutes assessing what was going on with the company. And we then did a foot patrol of about 2 kilometers across a wide open field to the second platoon site, spent an hour there, went to the third platoon site by crossing a field of about 1,500 meters. Spent about 45 minutes there. As we were getting ready to leave, Dixon came up to me and said, "Sir, we've set a pattern." I always moved in the number 5-man position in a wedge formation. That was my position. And he said, "Sir, we've set a pattern. They know where you are. They know where you're moving. We need to change up the formation." I said, "Okay." He said, "You take the number 1-man position and we'll reposition the forces." I left the compound. I was the first one out. Behind me was my interpreter and then the rest of the formation. We'd gone about 100 meters when we came under small arms fire from the north. It was a ruse. It was a demonstration as we returned fire to set conditions for a sniper in the west. The sniper took a single shot and hit the number 5-man directly in the forehead. By the time I arrived at Staff Sergeant Dixon, he'd already died. I held him in my arms, and I told him I loved him. And I told him that